On Christmas Eve, a pregnant widow locks her doors, turns on every light, and tells herself she's safe. Then a stranger knocks, calling her by name, describing her dead husband, and proving she's been watching for days. Minutes later, the police can't find anyone, but the woman is already inside. In the next few hours, a warm home becomes a sealed hunting ground, every hallway a trap, and every rescue attempt a massacre. Because tonight isn't about murder. It's about taking a baby, no matter how many bodies it costs. Christmas Eve is supposed to be gentle. In this movie, it becomes a countdown. A pregnant widow locks herself into a house alone, convinced the worst thing that could happen happened months ago on the highway. She's wrong. Tonight, a stranger who knows her name, her grief, and the layout of her rooms turns the home into a maze. Phones fail, glass shatters, and the people who arrive to protect her become targets too. By the time the lights flicker back on, one woman will be bleeding on the stairs, and another will be cradling a baby like a trophy. The story really begins months earlier, before the snow, before the decorations, before the house feels like a trap. A young couple sits in a parked car, laughing at nothing, holding hands like they've already won. They're expecting their first child, and every little conversation sounds like a promise. The next image is clinical and bright. An ultrasound, a small life flickering on a screen while the parents stare with awe. Then the world snaps. A commotion outside pulls the husband's attention, and within seconds, the calm collapses into sirens and twisted metal. Two cars have collided nearby, and the shock of it hits Sarah's body harder than anyone can understand. The crash leaves her battered and bleeding, and it steals the one person she thought would be beside her through everything. Her husband is gone. Sarah survives, and so does the baby, but survival is not the same as safety. The pregnancy becomes fragile, the future suddenly uncertain, and Sarah carries grief like a second heartbeat. By the time Christmas Eve arrives, Sarah's in the final stretch. Her body is still healing, her nerves are raw, and she is living in a house that feels too quiet for someone carrying so much noise inside her. Her mother calls constantly, offering to stay over, insisting that a pregnant woman this close to delivery should not be alone. Sarah keeps refusing. It's not just stubbornness. There's a distance between them that doesn't fit into a simple explanation, and Sarah would rather manage her fear by herself than invite old tension into the room. Instead, she puts her trust in her boss, the man who has checked on her since the accident and treated her more gently than the rest of the world. She meets him at a park bench and presses a spare key into his hand, making sure he can get into her house if she needs help. She wants him to be the one to drive her to the hospital if labor starts overnight or early in the morning. It's practical, but it's also revealing. Sarah is choosing control wherever she can. While they're talking, Sarah's focus drifts. Across the park, a woman sits alone, still as a statue, watching in a way that feels too direct. Sarah lifts her camera and takes a photo. It isn't artsy or casual. It's the instinctive move of someone who senses danger and wants proof, even if she can't explain what she's proving. Back home, Sarah tries to build normalcy out of routine. She moves through the kitchen, straightens small piles of baby supplies, checks the nursery like checking a lock. Her black cat follows her from room to room, weaving around her ankles like a shadow with fur. Finally, Sarah sits down and lets her mind slip. Grief comes in waves, and tonight it pulls her under. She falls asleep in her chair, and the dream hits fast. She jolts awake in the nightmare with nausea, vomiting hard, and then the pain starts in her belly. The scene turns surreal. In the dream, she is suddenly in labor, and the baby is sliding away from her as if the floor itself is stealing it. Her own cat appears, gripping the newborn and dragging it into darkness. Sarah lunges and screams, but her body won't move the way she needs it to. She wakes up gasping, the house still dark, the cat staring at her like nothing happened. The relief lasts only seconds. Someone knocks on the front door. When Sarah peers out, she sees a woman she doesn't recognize, bundled against the cold, claiming her car broke down and she needs to use the phone. Sarah refuses to open up. Holiday nights are perfect for scams, and Sarah is too cautious to gamble. She tries to end it politely, even lies and mentions her husband as if he's sleeping, hoping that the idea of another adult will make the stranger back off. But the stranger doesn't back off. She knows Sarah's name. She knows the husband died. She speaks like someone who has been following the story, not hearing it secondhand. Sarah's blood turns cold. She locks the door and looks through the peephole, and for a breath she sees nothing, just an empty porch. Then she hears movement and spots the woman at the back door, waiting there, perfectly patient, like she's testing the house for weaknesses. Sarah calls the police. The woman outside doesn't run from sirens that aren't even here yet. She lingers. She lights a cigarette, smokes like she has all night, and then slams her fist into the glass pane of the back door. The glass breaks with a sharp crack, and the sound shoots straight through Sarah's chest. Sarah grabs her camera, the only weapon she can think of that creates evidence, and starts taking pictures through the shattered frame. The stranger makes no effort to hide her face. She almost seems to enjoy being documented. Then, just as suddenly, she leaves, disappearing into the dark. When the police arrive, Sarah shows them everything. The broken glass, her shaking hands, the fresh photos. They search the yard, the street, even the nearby area, but the woman is gone. It's Christmas Eve, and the officers are stretched thin. They can't stay. They tell Sarah to lock up, keep calm, and promise they'll swing back to check on her. Sarah tries. She checks every window, every latch. She turns lights on and off, listens for footsteps that aren't there. Eventually, exhaustion wins again. She falls asleep, believing she has sealed the house. She hasn't. Sometime later, the stranger is inside, moving silently through the hallway as if she's practiced it. She stands close to Sarah's bed and watches her sleep. Sarah doesn't wake. The woman drifts away, and the camera lingers with her as she enters the nursery. She touches tiny socks, picks up a rattle, runs her fingers along the crib rail. There is something unsettlingly gentle about it, like she's imagining a different life. Then she returns to Sarah with scissors in her hand. The first strike wakes Sarah in a burst of pain. The woman cuts her face, then drives the attack toward Sarah's stomach, determined and frantic. Sarah reacts on pure instinct. She kicks, flails, scrambles off the bed, and grabs the nearest object she can swing. A lamp crashes into the intruder's head, buying Sarah a moment. She bolts into the bathroom and slams the door, locking it and pressing her full weight against it as her heartbeat hammers. The intruder doesn't immediately force the door. Instead, she backs off, going downstairs to tend to her own wounds. Sarah hears drawers opening, fabric tearing, and the soft sounds of someone bandaging themselves. It's terrifying because it's calm. The woman is not panicking. She is preparing. A new sound cuts through the house, the front door opening. Sarah's boss has arrived, earlier than planned, worried when Sarah didn't answer his calls. Downstairs, he sees the intruder and mistakes her for Sarah's mother. The woman allows the mistake. She plays along, keeps him close, and pours drinks with an easy confidence that disarms him. When she stands to grab more, the boss notices the photographs laid out on the table. He recognizes the face in them because it's the same face sitting right in front of him. His expression shifts, and the woman notices. Her hand goes for a pistol. Before she can use it, Sarah's mother arrives at the house. She walks into a scene that doesn't make sense. Strangers in her daughter's living room, bottles out, tension thick. Her instincts kick in and she rushes upstairs, calling for Sarah, trying to reach her before anyone else can. In the bathroom, Sarah hears footsteps and sees the doorknob move. Her mind is fractured by fear. She has grabbed a long knitting needle as a weapon, and when the door opens even a crack, she strikes. The needle lands in the neck of the person entering. It's her mother. Sarah's mother collapses, and Sarah's scream turns into a broken sound of disbelief. The boss rushes upstairs, horrified, and in that moment, the intruder attacks him from behind, stabbing him and leaving him stumbling. Sarah retreats back into the bathroom, locking the door again, sobbing as she tries to process what just happened. The boss is still alive, and his screams echo through the hallway. The intruder can't stand the noise. She drags him away and silences him for good, smothering him until the house goes quiet again. Sarah hears the silence and understands it without seeing. Her cat slips into the bathroom, pressing close. For a second, that small warmth feels like a lifeline. The intruder notices the cat later and kills it without hesitation, snuffing out the only comfort Sarah had left. Sarah is running out of places to hide and things to hold on to. She punches the bathroom mirror, shattering it, and takes a jagged piece of glass. Her hands are slick with blood, but she grips it anyway, eyes locked on the door like it's the only horizon she has. There's another knock. The police return to check on her, keeping their promise. The intruder answers the door and pretends everything is normal, using the dim light and the holiday confusion as cover. The officers start to leave, but one of them hesitates. He remembers Sarah is pregnant, and the voice at the door doesn't match the woman he's supposed to be speaking with. Suspicion ignites. Sarah hears them and bolts out of the bathroom, desperate, reaching for rescue. The intruder grabs her, slams her against the wall, and drives the scissors into Sarah's hand, pinning it so she can't run. Sarah's scream pulls the officers inside. One officer tries to restrain the woman, but she explodes with strength, twisting away and attacking. She uses the same knitting needle Sarah had, jamming it into an officer's eyes and leaving him blinded and staggering. In the chaos, she takes a gun, and another officer is killed before he can react. Sarah tears her hand free, leaving skin and blood behind, and locks herself in the bathroom again. Now the intruder has a firearm. She shoots the door repeatedly, cracking the frame, and Sarah braces for the moment the lock gives. Outside, more help arrives, but it isn't enough. A third officer comes with backup and a handcuffed prisoner in tow, responding to the lack of contact from the first two. When they enter, they see the bodies, the blood, the overturned furniture. Their panic spikes into action, and they move toward the bathroom. Then the lights go out. The intruder has cut power, turning the house into a dark maze again. The officer slips Sarah a gun through the bathroom door and tells her to shoot anyone who comes in. He goes downstairs to restore the lights, dragging the prisoner with him because he can't risk leaving anyone unattended. The intruder is already waiting in the dark. She ambushes them, stabbing the officer from behind and killing the prisoner before either of them can regain control. The footsteps stop. The house falls into a new silence. Sarah is alone again, listening to her own breath through pain. When the intruder returns upstairs, she climbs onto Sarah and tries to overpower her. Sarah fights like an animal cornered, and in the struggle she bites down hard on the woman's lip, tearing it and forcing her off. The intruder recoils enraged, and Sarah escapes into the kitchen, grabbing a knife with shaking hands. It isn't confidence, it's necessity. The intruder knocks her down with a heavy blow, then reaches for an aerosol can, trying to use it to disable Sarah. Sarah catches her chance, wrestles the can away, and sprays the woman, soaking her. A flame catches, and the spray ignites. The intruder's face burns, and she stumbles away in agony, but she isn't finished. Even wounded, she keeps coming back. Sarah's own body is falling apart. Her throat is damaged, her breathing failing. Desperate to stay alive, she creates an opening for air and uses tape to hold it, forcing herself to breathe through pain. It's the kind of act no one imagines doing until there's no other option. With the intruder burned and staggering, Sarah tries to build one last weapon. But the woman, half charred and furious, finally reveals why she came. Months ago, the crash that killed Sarah's husband wasn't just random bad luck. The intruder was behind the wheel of the other car. She was pregnant too. Her baby died in that collision. While Sarah carried on, this woman carried a void, and she decided the only way to fill it was to take what Sarah still had. The revelation hit Sarah like a second crash. This nightmare was never about hatred for Sarah as a person. It was obsession, loss turned into a plan, grief turned into violence. Before Sarah can act, the blinded officer downstairs, still alive somehow, stumbles through the darkness and accidentally restores the power, remembering where the switch was. The lights flick on. He hears movement, sees a figure, and in his confusion, he mistakes Sarah for the killer. He attacks her wildly, striking her as she begs him to stop, and the blows send Sarah collapsing to the floor. Blood spreads, and labor begins for real, unstoppable now, her body trying to bring the baby into a house soaked in death. The intruder sees the birth starting and makes a cold choice. She kills the officer not out of mercy, but because she needs him out of the way. She drags Sarah onto the stairs, positions her, and tries to pull the baby free. The child gets stuck, and the woman refuses to accept anything but victory. She uses the scissors to cut further and force the delivery, ignoring Sarah's screams and the fact that Sarah is slipping away. In the end, the baby is taken. The intruder cradles the newborn and sits in the house like she belongs there, rocking and cooing to the child as if this is a reunion, not a theft. Sarah lies broken on the stairs, the holiday light still blinking outside, while inside the home the silence returns, heavier than before, carrying the darkest kind of ending.